Hello. Today the internet sucked an entire butt. So we asked a whole bunch of questions of the few unfortunate souls that were at our live stream. We're going to be doing actual live streams every Saturday, hopefully, assuming our internet is resurrected. Either way, we asked you guys to give us questions, so we're going to answer said questions. All right? That's easy. Let's go. So the first question we got is from Smiley Freak, and it is, when writing dialogue, how do you create a good natural flow in conversations that still provides exposition while entertaining the reader at the same time?
That is a very tall order.
That's kind of like what you're expected to do with your dialogue. I think that the trick to it is just practice. No. The trick to getting dialogue to do all these things, and I'm going to do a whole video on dialogue this 100 days at some point, but the general gist of getting all of those three things is to kind of start by focusing on like getting a natural flow to it, so you can kind of understand your characters, and you can get that natural flow by like copying other people, like how they actually talk. And from there, you want to kind of just trim things down to kind of the bare minimum. And I say the bare minimum meaning like as close to reality as you can get before it gets a little weird for you to be cutting things down even more than you are. And yeah, because you still want it to sound natural, but like just pull it back as far as you can until it stops sounding natural, and then go back a few steps to it being natural. And then for getting your exposition in, you just need to know what you're going for from the beginning of your scenes. And that's just a general tip for all scenes and all writing in general, is know what you want to get across and make sure it gets across at some point during the scene or segment you're trying to get it across in. Okay, next question from somebody. Sorry, I cut off the name on this one. I cut off the name, but it is, any advice on making characters that you haven't mentioned before?
Man, that is hard, because on the design side, I've done so many videos about character design because of our vlog that we were doing for a while. I think one of the important things about character is like you can do a whole bunch of stuff that just has to do with like good design principles. So for example, like using shape language to show a character's personality through like their shape. But I think something that I like tend to forget about is making decisions the characters would about, say, how they dress or like how they move. So for example, like, you know, if say you have two characters who grew up in the same house, they're going to dress differently because of their own personalities. You know, they might choose different outfits to wear, different colors to wear. Say, you know, you could even have twin characters who look exactly the same, but they're going to dress and behave differently because they're different characters. So if you're ever making like a design decision, so let's say it's about costumes, like, you know, you don't have to have some amazing like data-driven design decision for why they're wearing that particular hat. It could be the character likes that hat, and that's okay.
From Anna Schultz, question mark. Last one from me. Oh no, there's probably more earlier. They were going in opposite order here. How close together is too close together for splash pages?
A splash page should be saved for a big reveal that needs lots of space to take in. Also, if you're putting your pages into a book, like it's not just going to stay as, say, like a webcomic, you'll want to probably have your splash pages on I think it's the even numbered pages, so that when they turn the page, it does a reveal.
I don't think it has to be.
No.
Yeah, you can. It's fine.
Okay.
It's not always a reveal.
Cut that part out.
No, I don't want to edit at all.
Oh. Okay. Well, okay, so I guess it doesn't have to be a reveal. I think too many splash pages can be tiring.
It's just about pacing,
yeah.
You know? If it feels like it warrants a splash page, it warrants it. But if you feel like there's maybe too many, there's probably an issue there, you know? If there's a fight scene, there's going to be a lot of splashing. Okay, what else is there? Let's get through these quick. How do you practice comics without using an idea that sounds too interesting to be practice? Something that's too interesting to be practiced, but also without being bored. Okay, stories can be interesting, just don't make them huge. Like, I'm gonna talk a bit about scope in a later video, but like, go for an idea that you're interested in, but maybe not the big, huge idea that is gonna span multiple volumes, you know? There's gonna be on a 100-page story that is interesting to you, okay? Don't do anything that's boring. Interesting is fine. Maybe not like your total baby, like the comic that you love. It's like means a lot to you. But maybe even you could do that if it's short. I don't know. Like, don't do anything boring. Wait, just because it's interesting doesn't mean it's going to be a huge problem project. There we go. What else do we got? Kuraku. Also, how do you have time to work on comics and have art to post on Insta?
With Instagram, I find it helps just to post random doodles or even snapshots of your comic. I definitely have the benefit of like we make art for specific videos, like our OC Storytime videos, so that gives me content to put on Instagram.
Whips is fine.
Yeah. I know some people have used it for posting like traditional art, because it's you can't really post on Instagram from your computer, so they just use their camera on all their traditional art that they just doodle for their Instagram. But yeah, just post works in progress and stuff.
Oh, here's another one from Anna. How does Bones feel about early character deaths? Hell yeah, kill them early. Kill them early, kill them late, kill them all the time. Go for it.
No.
Ian Palakrava. So sorry, I can't pronounce names. Can you start a long comic even though it's your first? How do you make panels that convey emotion or setting well?
Start with the long comic.
Yeah, start with long comic. You can start a long comic. Like, there's no rule that says you cannot ever make a long comic as your first comic. I just know I personally wouldn't do it. Though my definition of long is apparently way longer than other people's definition of long. I think starting with like a 100 to 250 page comic is like a really good start, because it's like 1 to 2 years of work. As soon as you start getting up into like 500 plus, it starts being like a longer amount of time. And during that long amount of time, you improve like drastically, especially if it's your very first one. And then you start like going back and restarting, and that can be like a trap that people get kind of stuck in. So yeah, go ahead and start one if you want to. I can't stop you, but I just worry sometimes. It's just nice to have something done at the end too. I think when you're working on your first comic, you want something in your hands at some point, and if you keep it smaller, it's just more manageable for that and monetizable.
Wait, there was another part of the question.
Oh, right, sorry, there's another part. You answer that. How do you make panels that convey emotion or setting?
I think what'll help you is really studying like film composition, for example, because there are so many different ways you can convey both a setting and emotion in a panel. It just depends on how much space you have. Like, you're definitely going to have panels that will say be like a close-up on a face to show like an emotion or a reaction, and they might not have the setting at all in the background. But you're definitely going to have panels where they show, say, like the whole room they're standing in, or characters interacting with things. You can always bend the setting to fit the emotion. So if something's scary, you can bend the setting so that it looks warped and threatening. There's so much you can do, and I highly recommend looking into film composition, because there's already so much work that is done on conveying emotion through your compositions.
Victoria Gomez asked, is foreshadowing something to plan from the beginning? Only if you plan things at the beginning. Like, if you don't know what's going to happen in your comic, like, you're not going to be able to foreshadow well. So, if you know what's going to happen at the end, yeah, go ahead and foreshadow. But for me, sometimes I just go back and add it. Foreshadowing is definitely something that you need to pay attention to when you're getting people to beta read your stories, or like just edit your scripts for you, is to like rein it in or add more depending on like what people are thinking. I'm going to talk a little bit about that at the end of this 100 days thing too. Just talking about beta readers because they're really important in putting the right amount of foreshadowing in, because it's hard to know what people need to know until you ask people like what their reactions are to things. Because if people are getting to the end of your story and they're like, wow, I didn't see that coming at all, like that was such Deus Ex Machina, then you need to be like, okay, maybe my foreshadowing wasn't strong enough. Meanwhile, if people are like, oh, that was so predictable, what a boring story, then you're like, oh, okay, maybe I should pull back on the foreshadowing a little bit. So it's not something you can do right out of the gate really well. I guess regardless of when you do it, it's going to need some editing to it.
Little Art Devil Lad asks, how do you give a mood through setting when it's black and white?
Lighting,
yeah. You can do it through lighting and just really being very like deliberate with your placement of contrast. You know, because you can, if you look at, say, like, manga is a really good place to look for black and white comics showing different moods, because most manga, I think, is printed black and white. Or you can do really dramatic lighting with it, or you could have a panel that has, like, zero shadow at all. It's really just you need to be very decisive with where you place your, like, your black washes and where you leave things white.
Yeah, and there's more to mood than just lighting, too. And color. There's way more than just color that sets a mood.
Oh, true, because it can have to do with composition, like how the characters and elements in each panel are placed.
Yeah, etc., etc.
Yeah.
This will go on forever. Okay, Soul asked how to not be a chaotic force of ADHD and actually remember to work things, especially working on multiple projects without neglecting either. Oh man, isn't that the struggle? It helps to, I think the challenge is a really good idea. The 100 Days of Comics challenge that we're doing, 30 minutes every day of any amount of work. If you find you avoid certain if you find that you avoid certain parts of the comic making experience, it's good to force yourself to do them. Like, just set aside some time every day to do it. I personally am someone who half finishes projects all the time, but I always get back to them eventually, so make sure to check in with old works. Like, rereading stuff always gets me excited. Just working on dedication, I guess. Yeah, just setting a timer every day to do it, just making it part of your routine is just a good way to get on top of that sort of stuff. And having goals, too. That'll help you a whole bunch.
Yes, setting deadlines is very important.
Oh, another question from Anna. When working on the beginning, or any point really, how do you know when to stop making changes and overthinking things? My beginning has changed like 30 times in 2 months. I'm really bad to ask at this because I'm someone who does that constantly, but it's like part of my process. If you find you're never getting anything done and it's really hindering you, I'd recommend stopping, especially if it's your first thing and you haven't really finished a lot. And yeah, if you're just stuck at the beginning, you just gotta push past, because you're never gonna learn anything about endings and middles if you don't write any of them. Don't start making changes until you're finished a story. In that case, 30 times in 2 months, that might be a lot of beginning changes. But, 30 changes isn't going to be a lot in the grand scheme of like editing things, because editing will change everything. But make sure you have the whole thing done before you start picking at stuff. Especially if you're new. I'm not saying this advice to myself because I'm weird and I've been doing this for a while. And I found my method, my rhythm. Okay, what else we got? Sally SPT. Do you have any tips on how to write your first outline? Man, I'm not an outliner. I'm gonna do another video on plotting, which will go into this very in depth. But I find paying attention to the very important plot points, Like, make sure you got all of those down, and make sure you know what your character's wants and needs are. And that being, a want is whatever your character is going to get at the end of the story through obtaining what they need. And what they need is usually like a life lesson or change in perspective or something like that. Coralia. Okay. What are the best ways to start your story? Oh man, that's going to be the next few weeks, is just us talking about that very beginning stuff. So stay tuned for that. Thoughts on using SketchUp for background, especially?
I don't exactly know what SketchUp is, but I assume that is something that lets you model rooms, possibly.
Thanks.
Tools like that are great. I think they're good studying tools to learn how to start working on, say, backgrounds if you've never like tackled them before. And it can be like a very quick way to explore different settings before you like decide on one, and save you like lots of like drawing and redrawing. So I think they're a great tool if you want to use them. I'll usually just grab photographs to grab inspiration, but if it works for you, that's awesome.
Crow asked, I have 8 chapters written. Is that too soon to start thumbnailing? Finish your script before you thumbnail. You can work on like designing, because designing takes a whole bunch of time. I know tons of people who actually will do their thumbnails before they finish their script, and I guess it's fine. You're allowed to do it. Like, just don't tell me, because you'll hurt me. We've started a few comics actually by only knowing the first few pages, and I always find by the end of it, I'm like, by the end of actually writing the script, I wish I could change things at the beginning, and sometimes I do, but I'm stuck to doing the dialogue. So don't, like, if you can avoid it, don't do it, because you lose a lot of freedom as soon as you start doing art. Like, thumbnailing, you might be fine, but yeah, be careful. Tread lightly before you finish it. At least know your ending, at the very least. Sally SPT. Another question from Sally. Do you have any advice or tips on writing superhero or school comics? Any advice?
Study the genres.
Yeah,
so that you're not derivative. So that you're not just pulling, I guess, tropes that have been trodden on over and over again. And also, you don't want to write something that is way so out of genre that people who are looking for a superhero comic or a school comic are just like, this is not for me. So yeah, just go study the genre and see what they do. We're not super familiar with
either.
Yeah.
Rosie A, how many pages should one chapter be? As many as you want, okay? Like, anywhere from 5 to 50, usually. There's a good starting point. I'll talk a bit about scenes in the future, and they're very similar to chapters, kind of. They're not really at all similar to chapters, I don't know. But chapters are more of a tool for pacing, so if you feel that it helps with the pace of your story, whether like taking a break, like a chapter break, creates needed tension or a needed pause, that's usually where a chapter break is, or it has something to do with like printing something, because sometimes your printer requirements, like if you're going to be doing issues, like with 9 Point, it's like it's breaking things down so that the issue so that the volume has several issues and each issue comes out and is big enough. But even then, it just kind of comes down to pacing and how you want your story paced. Thinky McFly asks, where is the best place to post your first comic? Wherever people can see it. Webtoon's good, Tapas is good, Smack Jeeves is alright. You can place them all over the place. You can get your own website. You can go on Tumblr. Just get yourself out there and see what works for you. Because like different genres fly better in different places, honestly. And you're not going to have lots of views. You're not going to have a lot of views during the beginning phase of your comic, no matter what. So Just have fun. If you like a community, go for it. And you don't need to have webtoon format to be on webtoons, okay? Like, people tolerate it just fine. N asks, what comes after the scripting phase?
Design work and thumbnailing, probably.
Yeah, sometimes design works during the scripting phase, honestly. Yeah. But thumbnailing is like the definitive like next phase, where you take each of your pages, or if you didn't write them in pages, you turn them into like small sketches of what you think the pages are going to look like. You get all those done, and then you can move onward into making them into actual pretty pages. But don't skip your thumbnailing phase. It'll save you way more time. Ursula's going to get all into thumbnails this month.
Yeah, do your thumbnails or I'll cry.
Little Art Devil Lad again. How do you pick which are good ideas and which ones are bad ideas when you have so many ideas? I'm going to be talking about ideas tomorrow, so there you go. You don't even have to wait for that one. Assuming you have... Okay, how do you avoid flanderizing your characters? What is flanderizing, Ein?
What does this mean?
Explain this concept to me, and I'll tell you how to avoid it. Right now, I don't know. I don't have time to look it up. Okay, so that was our... Okay, you know what? Since we don't have... Let's look up flanderize. You teach me new words or memes. I hope this isn't a meme. Flanderizing is the act of taking a single trait from a character and exaggerating it more and more over time until it consumes the character. I think this is more of a problem of people who read your stories. Like, try not to if you write your stories before audiences take their hands on them, you can avoid it. I think it's probably an issue where, like, it's like a runaway character where they're just like, ooh, woo, this is what this character is, and you're like, oh, I guess this is what they are, until the point where you lose who they are. I don't think it's necessarily bad for some characters to be one note, especially like background characters. It's also just good to make sure you know what they want and how they're going to change throughout the story, and also to not worry too much, you know, because it's not the worst thing that can happen to a character. Because sometimes it's fun for characters to be one note, but if it's bothering readers, that's when you need to fix it. I think I'll talk about characters coming up soon, but either way, there you go. Taught me a new word. Ursula, you sign off because I've talked so much. My voice is gone.
I know. Everyone's got the writing questions. All right. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Fado is here, giving us some support. So yeah, next weekend we will be doing an actual Q&A stream, provided our internet doesn't crap out again. And Fado, give us some limb. So we will do an actual Q&A stream where we can answer your questions live. But hopefully some of these have answered some of the questions that you had.
There's Fado.
Most of these topics we will go more in depth through our videos for the next 100 days. And yeah.
See you guys next time. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.